I'm somebody who a lot of choices can sometimes be overwhelming to me. I like simplicity. I like being close to nature. And I think one of the most absurd things about our modern time is the way things are made right now, that everything is made so cheaply and that we are geared to consume and throw away in such a way that is so wasteful and so contradictory to keeping our planet healthy and alive. Um, I think that's definitely something that stands out to me. Don't even want to go into the absurdity of politics these days. But yeah, that's definitely another thing that I can hardly even wrap my head around. Um, Women's rights going backwards in 2024, that all of those things are just super absurd to me.
That was Captain Liz Clark responding to my question about what felt most absurd to her about re entering Western civilization after spending 10 years on the Pacific solo sailing her vessel Swell. She started sailing at the age of 7, and by the age of 10 had already completed a 5,000-mile journey, 6 months in Mexico, sailing with her family. She discovered surfing at the age of 15, and in 2002, she became the college women's national champion. Fueled by those passions of sailing and surfing, she spent 3 years overhauling Swell's vital systems, and in October of 2005, she left Santa Barbara Harbor, pointed south, and ended up spending 10 years at sea, over 20,000 nautical miles, exploring the vast Pacific for surf. It's all chronicled in her book, Swell, A Sailing Surfer's Voyage of Awakening, which was published by Patagonia Books in 2018. And then it was just released in paperback, I think 2 weeks ago, May 28th, maybe last week. So you can find that at patagoniabooks.com. It's a mere $22. It's an excellent read, super inspirational, aspirational, whether you surf or sail or not. It's just a great story about chasing your dreams, dreaming big, and then setting out to chase those dreams. Anyways, these conversations with amazing guests like Liz Clark are made possible with our industry partners. Rourke.com, promo code Splendor15 will save you 15% on gear and apparel on Rourke. RealWatersports.com for any and all of your hard goods, soft good, water sport needs. And then, of course, VayerWatches.com/surf Splendor will save you 15% on an ocean-ready American-made timepiece. So thank you very much. I really hope that you enjoy my episode today with Liz Clark. I was able to track down Captain Liz Clark at her home in Tahiti on land, believe it or not, where she's purchased property and it's been putting down roots since 2018. So my name is David Scales for Surf Splendor, and I hope that you enjoy my conversation with Captain Liz Clark.
Surf Splendor.
My dad was a lawyer and then kind of got into real estate and then cancer research, kind of like data analysis for cancer research. And my mom took care of us 3 kids and had different jobs here and there. But yeah, I had a wonderful childhood in San Diego and kind of lived all over San Diego County, a little bit in North County, a little bit down in by Sunset Cliffs area. So when I started surfing, I got to surf some like the North County beaches. And then when I go back now, I'm more in the south part of San Diego when I go visit. So I get to enjoy the reefs of Sunset Cliffs and yeah, great place to grow up.
Good. Yeah, it really is. Do you remember your first discovering surfing? Were your
I do.
parents into it or?
No, my parents were not surfers. Um, they were ocean people. We spent so much time on the water on my dad always had a sailboat. My mom wasn't the one who was super into it, but she enjoyed being on the water a bit. And but yeah, I was exposed to the ocean my whole young childhood. And then I think I was about 15 when I was a competitive gymnast for my young years and through the first couple years of high school. And I hung out with a couple of surfer girlfriends that said, "Hey, you should, try riding some waves." And I went out one time with my friend Renee, and I didn't even stand up. It was kind of big, and we were just in the white water, and but I got the sensation, and I got the bug, and I would take I still lived in Point Loma at the time, and I would take a friend of mine would take a taxi to the beach at in Mission Beach and just ride waves in the white water. I bought like a 8 foot Encinitas surfboard egg and taught myself just in the white water. And then we moved to North County, San Diego, and we were really close to the beach in Del Mar, and I could walk um, with my board down to the beach, and the neighborhood surfers took me in, and um, that was kind of the beginning of my surfing journey.
Got it. What was your first exposure to sailing?
To sailing, I was on a boat since I was in diapers. So yeah, I was always, every weekend we were out there. Every summer it would be trips to Catalina, trips to the Channel Islands. It was kind of we never went camping. It was always sailboat
Yeah.
adventures. Yeah.
Um, what did your parents expect uh, you to do with your life, or did they have any expectations for what they wanted you to do professionally?
I was I was really successful student. I was good at knowing what the teacher wanted and doing what it took to get a good grade. So I think, you know, at first when I kind of decided to take an alternative path, my parents were a little surprised, but um, they were never, they never came out and said, "We don't think you should do that." At one point when I studied abroad in Australia, my junior year, and I kind of towards the end, I was like, "Dad, I don't want to come back. I just want to travel and surf now." And he's like, "You know what? You should come back and finish school, and then you can do whatever you want." Like they really wanted me to get my degree, and but they saw that the surfing bug had bitten, and I had always, since I was a little girl, had this dream of sailing, doing long distance sailing and seeing the world that way. And so I think they knew that I was going to choose an alternative path, and so they were pretty accepting of it in general.
Talking about having that idea from being a young girl, were there any role models who you looked up to for inspiration or guidance for the first, for the main trip that you ended up doing?
I there were two books that I read as a kid. One was Dove by Robin Lee Graham, and one was Maiden Voyage by Tanya Eby. And both sailed around the world at a very young age, late teens, and shared their stories of their adventures. And both those stories were really like the seed, the seeds that like planted my dream of, taking this big sailing adventure. And then it wasn't until a little bit later, I think I read those when I was 11, 12, 13. And then, when I discovered surfing, and it became such a focal point in my life during college, that was kind of when the idea of, oh man, I could use my sailing background to get me to all these waves that are off the beaten path. And, as a woman, it was always hard to get waves in the Santa Barbara area. It was usually so crowded when the surf was on. And so the idea of being able to kind of like escape the crowd and use my sailing skills to go explore for waves was then it even just like invigorated my dream even more.
Yeah. We know kind of now, obviously, anybody who's read the book knows it ended up being a 10-year trip, 20,000 miles. But what was the original concept? What were you originally conceiving of?
Yeah, originally I envisioned 2 to 3 years and that I would go all the way around the world. And I think at that time I was in my young 20s and 2 to 3 years sounded like a really long time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think once I spent 2 to 3 years getting the boat ready, just working on the boat at the dock, by the time I finally left, it was like, geez, I have to go at least longer than it took me to get the boat fixed. So,
Yeah.
um, even once I really started out, I realized like to enjoy myself and to actually be able to surf, like with all the work that it takes to get the boat to other places, keep it maintained, keep all your supplies to keep you alive, all of those details that go into it. You need time. And so yeah, it ended up and being that I was able to keep it going financially, just there was no real urgent need to come back.
Yeah.
But so
Um, I mean, we talked about your parents kind of accepting the idea of an adventurous lifestyle, but they had to be reticent. I mean, you setting out by yourself, did you want to go by yourself? Did you try to talk anybody into coming with you? Um, and were your parents ultimately, I would just think they'd be scared ultimately.
yeah, the way it all panned out with having my mentor Barry Schuyler involved and the way that we set the boat up with like no stone unturned, looking at what to be fixed and I think they knew to do it no matter what. And so in some ways it was a relief to them that I had found this person that was just as excited as I was and was going to live vicariously through me, but willing to help me make the boat safe. And so, yeah, they were definitely scared, but they knew how competent I was. They knew that I was going to do it either way.
Yeah.
Uh, I was so determined that it wasn't there was no use in trying to stop me. They just wanted me to be as safe as I could and make good choices. And um, my parents kind of set me up like that from a young age. They always let me kind of like put my hand in the fire a little to know that it was hot and metaphorically, like
Hmm.
they were always letting me try things whether, they might not think it was the best choice. They let me make a wrong decision and feel what that felt like. And I think because I did that from a young age, it really did help me feel more confident going into such a big adventure like that.
Yeah. So talking about the concept for the trip, did you have certain
Oh yeah.
surf spots mapped out, or I mean, a lot of I would presume, and I know you're not going to name spots, but I would presume a lot of what you discovered on the way may not have been discovered before. So how did you kind of plot out your surf destinations?
Yeah, I think I had like general destinations in mind going into it. And, in certain regions, there was always one wave that was pretty well known that I'd always want to at least um, experience a little bit. And then, you get somewhere like that and you surf for a while with local people and you talk to people and you hear of other spots nearby or you study the charts and just think, oh, this has the potential, like let's go check it out. But it was generally once I got in, I wasn't always looking ahead super far. It was like once I got to a certain region, I was looking just at the coastline, mostly right ahead of me. Um, other than like the big, more known spots along the way. Hmm.
What what kind of blows my mind for a journey like yours is just that spots can the difference between a good day and a not good day is night and day. You know what I mean? So like you could roll up on a spot and it could just be the wrong direction by a little bit. And you think, oh, well, this isn't a spot. But if you had a month to wait around,
Yeah,
then you could see it do its thing, you know? So it's just so fickle that way.
absolutely. And I could have taken so much more time in
Yeah.
so many of the places. And, sometimes depending on what was happening, oftentimes in that first year and a half, I had friends with me. I had crew that was flying in and out here or there. So sometimes I had more time, sometimes I had to get somewhere for someone to fly in or out. And so, um, it just all depended on what was happening and whether I could stick around and check out a wave for a little bit longer if I saw the potential of a place. Um, and it seemed worth it. And
Yeah.
so sometimes you just roll up to somewhere and score, and that's just life. Sometimes it all came together easily.
Without revealing too much, is there a way that you could paint a picture about the best surf that you found on the journey?
Sure. I think were the times where I had no idea at all that I was going to stumble upon really good waves. Um, Having no information before and then getting somewhere like my girlfriend and I were in the outer islands of Panama and ended up at this incredible A-frame beach break. The waves just like wrapped around the island, and it was just the most perfect beach break we'd ever seen. And um the land was completely uninhabited. It was just like the most incredible backdrop. And it was, just something you'd draw on your school book, and we could just surf it all day long. And it was just an incredible feeling of freedom and um you know accomplishment. I'd been in Panama City for several months getting the boat ready to cross the Pacific, so there was just like, I'd have these times where it'd start to seem blurry why I was doing it. There was so much work to get the boat in the right condition to do these trips. And I'd be in these polluted bays, um, no surf around, and just have to stay super focused on the projects and being a captain. And then to stumble upon perfect surf and uh just with a girlfriend, just so dreamy.
Yeah.
So dreamy. Yeah.
Yeah, that region seems like there's just so many um untapped opportunities with those islands and stuff. So
So much. There's
if you
so
have the
much.
time, yeah, if you had the time to explore, you could probably find tons.
Yeah, there's so much there, and there's so little development. It's still, when I was there, it was still very wild. And so yeah, really special area.
Um, I think anybody who's traveled kind of recognizes that one of the benefits of it is broadening of your worldview. When you get exposed to different cultures, you just realize kind of the small world that you might have been living in before.
Mhm.
Um, I'm curious, just given that you've experienced a lot of humans from different places, and what has surprised you most?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and I said that I think the best surprise is how many good people are out there. And um yeah, just how many good people that wanted to help me everywhere I went and or welcome me. We often get this picture that places are scary and dangerous. And, I was a woman traveling solo a lot of the time. And I think that over and over, humanity showed me that the biggest percentage of people are really just like you and me and want to help people, and not ever looking to do anything bad. So That was the most wonderful surprise that came up again and again everywhere I went.
That's nice to hear. It's
Mm.
reassuring.
Yeah, we see a lot of the opposite on TV, but I think, yeah.
Or I wonder, I mean, you're right, we do see a lot of the opposite on TV, but I also wonder now if um, left to your own tiny environments, without, if it is the exposure to other things and other people that actually makes you connect or willing to connect or sympathize or something. And if you're just kind of amongst the same group regularly, there's something festers that isn't healthy.
Yes, I can see that. And I do think in a lot of the places that I was traveling, people understand what it's like to live day to day, to live in a way that's with a lot of uncertainty, and where you do need help from your neighbor quite often.
Yeah.
And so there is that layer of sympathy that maybe in a world where we're so independent and everything's modernized and we don't need each other as much, it's easier to not have sympathy toward other people. So,
It could be, I mean, now that you're saying that, it makes me think it could be related to population itself, just the numbers, because you're
mhm,
right. You're right. When there's fewer people in a community, you have to work together in order to succeed. And then
absolutely.
you get to a certain point where there's so many people that you're now fighting for the resource. And so, I view my neighbor as a competitor, whether it's
Totally.
for for a parking spot or just whatever it happens to be.
It's so true. It's so
Yeah.
true. In the smaller communities, like you said, it was one of my biggest learning moments, on my trip was, having the epiphany. You grow up in in the US thinking that ultimate independence and autonomy is like the best thing. And if you can do everything yourself, that's the goal. And when I was in a lot of these really off the beaten track places, it showed me the reality of, like, you cannot survive on your own. You have to be able to get along with your family, your neighbors. You have to find a way to communicate and be a part of a bigger team, which is something that's gotten so lost in our modern world. Like you said, it's like we're competing with each other, which um, I I think, yeah, it doesn't make as nice of a feeling. Although I'm sure in a lot of those cases out there, people don't want to have to get along with their families and their uh,
Yeah.
communities, but it does force you to have to be the bigger person sometimes, or just make it work.
Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
Well, I've heard you talk about that journey and how it's made you feel less alone and more connected to something bigger and greater than yourself. Um, how do you define that? How do you define what is bigger and greater than yourself? Do you have a religion, or do you identify as religious or spirituality, or what is it that you're connecting to?
I don't really have a super specific definition. I wouldn't call myself religious, but I would definitely call myself spiritual, and that I have, carved out my own connection with the great mystery that I can't say that I understand it or that I have figured anything out concrete, but that I have a relationship that fulfills me in a lot of ways, and that I can turn to when things are hard, and kind of like get back to those basic that basic comforting feeling that we're here for some purpose, and that yeah, we're not just a speck floating out in the galaxy for nothing. Um, and that, I think, growing up without a specific religion in my life, and being very curious about religion, uh, the trip that I took had so many times where I was in really difficult, precarious situations where, um, you know, when you're kind of like suspended in the unknown, um, you tend more to lean into wanting to believe that there's some greater force that's protecting you, that's helping you along the way. And I do think that that vulnerability is what allowed me to develop that relationship a little bit, deeper than maybe I would have in a modern life, or maybe it would have happened slower. I'm not sure. I think everyone goes through challenges no matter what lifestyle we choose that force us to uh, have those bigger questions about life.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, they probably come one way or another, but maybe mine got accelerated a little bit
I would
because
think so. I mean, when you're comfortable, there's no need to ask
exactly,
those questions.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, Speaking of being uncomfortable, what was the most scared that you've ever been on the sailboat?
I think the most scared were several of the experiences with lightning storms. Um, I think the worst was that passage when I was alone. Um, it was a 1,500-mile passage alone from the Line Islands, Kiribati, to back to French Polynesia, and I was going upwind, and the weather became really unstable, and uh, had just big, violent thunderstorms coming through for a whole long uh pretty sure it was like a day and a half of just hellish squalls, and some really, really close calls with lightning strikes that just so frightening, because there's, when it's really windy, there's a few, techniques you can do to kind of um dissipate the risk, or make things a little more comfortable. But those lightning storms, like, there's just you're just helpless, and you're a giant metal pole in the middle of all this water. So it's just like it's frightening.
Could you sleep during a day and a half?
I think I didn't really sleep for several days on that passage. It was the most exhausted and most taxing trip that I'd ever done. It was ended up being 15 days until I reached port, and the last 8, I think I was beating upwind, so really uncomfortable, and constantly needing to check and adjust the sails, and not sleeping well. I think I hove to for maybe 12 hours at one point, which is like a technique that kind of like backwinds your sails, so you kind of like ride more stably, and you don't make any forward progress really. But I was able to get a little rest during that time. But it was definitely the most exhausted and challenging passage that I did by myself.
I mean, and that's a passage where you would need to be as sharp as you could possibly be. And if you don't have sleep, I don't know how you make good decisions, and function.
Yeah, it was crazy. Towards the end, I was like so tired. I was talking to a friend on the radio once a day, and I remember like having the thoughts that I wanted to express in my head, but I couldn't get them out of my mouth because I was so tired. It was just like my brain and my tongue became unconnected. And yeah, it was it was good though, because in the moment it was hell, but getting to the other side and having successfully made it to port, it just showed me how, when you think you have no more, there's
Mm.
always more, or you have a reserve that when survival really is at stake, you reach deeper and find it.
Um, what was the longest period of time that you went without human interaction?
I think it might have been those 15 days, because on the longer passage, from from Galapagos to French Polynesia, I was with my mom, and that was 3 weeks at sea. And there were definitely other times where I was in a bay for an extended period of time, or a remote anchorage. But I feel like most of the time I would see a fisherman here or there, or have a little bit of contact with other people. I ended up, you think that I would have been alone so much, but it was interesting how I actually had to kind of seek out that solitude and that time, even when I was solo sailing, because the sailing community is small, and when you're in a place, like, everyone kind of wants to hang out and for you to be a part of the whatever's going on. And so um yeah, I think it was really the passages that you're really more intensely alone, when you're out
Hmm.
at sea.
Is
Mm.
there anything after 15 days that you crave the most about human contact?
I remember just like needing a hug from time to time, like just going long stretches without any, I guess, human contact, talking to people, but even just having like a hug from someone. I remember really missing that and feeling like I needed it.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about the process of writing the book.
Hmm.
Um, can you tell me how that offer came to you? Or did you pitch the concept of a book, or was it presented to you?
So Patagonia opened a books division, maybe a couple of years before we started working on Swell. And it was Patagonia Books who pitched a short story book originally. That was 2014, I believe. And uh it was a time where it seemed like I was kind of ready to slow down a little bit, ready to kind of grow some roots, and also had all these experiences and felt like there was so much that I needed to kind of like get it written down. And I felt I had so much to share and had learned so much that I wanted to make sure that I could capture that in a way that would transmit some of those important messages that I'd learned. And so it seemed like good timing. And so originally it was going to be like 25 short stories with photos. And um, when I sat down and started writing, and it just developed into what it is today, it became, a much more like a memoir. Um, and luckily, you know, when I showed that to Patagonia Books, they liked it, and they were open to adjusting the vision for the book a bit. So yeah, it was an interesting process. I kind of had to just like get it all out, write it all down, and then, whittle down and pull out, extract the most important parts, and create a story arch that followed. And
Yeah,
um
I mean, I guess the 25 short stories thing sounds feasible. Like, if you aren't an accomplished writer and you've never written a book before, that seems like something maybe you could pull together. But what it turned into is actually incredible, and it's beautiful. It turned out phenomenally. I was just kind of curious if you had confidence as a writer. Like, did you identify as a writer? Did you have confidence in being able to write a book?
I mean, I always loved writing. I never studied journalism or any sort of creative writing like that, but I always enjoyed keeping a journal, and I religiously kept a journal from the beginning of the trip. And I also, kind of use blogging as a way to keep the boat afloat financially. So I had enough confidence as a writer to know that I could get the stories down in a way that was enjoyable for people to read. what I didn't have confidence in myself doing was creating, like drawing a thread of the themes throughout a story that's that long, basically connecting it all together and finding a story arch that follows. So that was definitely not in my skill set before I set out on the book. And luckily, at the end, I worked with a really great editor who was really, she loved the story and she could see it with an outsider's eye. I was so close to the story that I couldn't see the elements that were missing, or um, the things that, from, I wanted to be accessible to non-sailors and non-surfers,
Yeah.
because really, like, it's a human story, essentially. And so I wanted it to be able to be understandable and appealed to a bigger audience than just surfers and sailors. So she helped me see the gaps in the story, and help me, get it all sewn together in a way that made sense and captivated my audience.
How
So I was
long
really
did how long was the process of writing it?
So I started, I think, about midway through 2014, and I think the final draft I turned in 2017.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quite a process, but I was also, living on anchor, so still, halfway camping. My lifestyle isn't set up for just, I not go walking into an air conditioned office with like a water machine. And it was hard to write and keep the boat going and live in a place where half the people don't work and just surf all the time. And so trying to focus on something was kind of hard. um but it was an adventure in itself. I looking back, it was a really fun time.
Did you have any expectations for the success of the book?
I mean, I kind of knew I had one shot, and so I took it pretty seriously. I wanted, at some point, the original editor thought, oh, it's good enough, and I wanted something excellent. And so I really, I knew that, um the great thing about Patagonia books is there was a lot of creative control that I kept over the story. Um, but there's also a much smaller market in terms of work. If you were to work with one of the huge publishers. So I knew that the book had to be good enough to sell itself, and sell through, word of mouth, and people just liking it and sharing it with their, friends or family members who they think would enjoy it. And so yeah, that's why I think I took it seriously to make sure it was something that was worthy of publishing at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea how many copies it sold, but I would presume if it's going into paperback, you had to hit a certain threshold. And so it seems like it's been incredibly successful.
I mean, for me, I feel really proud of it. I love the fact that it has reached um people of all types. I get these letters um from older men, from younger men. Really, I kind of was thinking that I was writing it for a women's audience. And I just love how the spectrum of people that has touched has been really amazing. So yeah, it's sold over 30,000 copies now. And
Amazing.
yeah, it's just, it for me, it's really wonderful to see how it inspires people and um gets people believing in their own journey and taking that more seriously. And that's really what I wanted the book to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think you say that maybe in the introduction of the book or somewhere.
Mhm.
And I think that is really a noteworthy ambition. I mean, I honestly, I would venture a guess that most people do not chase their life's goal, or that they don't even set an ambitious goal for themselves, And so whatever it is that you have that made you, and maybe it was like we talked about earlier, your parents made you feel empowered to even chase the goal, that's unique. And
Mm.
so, bravo for you for doing it, and then for setting that goal to inspire other people to do it who may not have the same parenting that empowered them to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
Abs-
uh, Speaking of people who have read your book, have you had any starstruck moments where somebody who you admire reached out to you just as a fan of yours?
Um, yeah, I think Maya Gabier read the book. Um, a lot of uh some of my surf, the younger surf generation that are so incredible today, the female surf generation, Paige Alms, um, who else? I'm probably forgetting somebody awesome, but there's been it's just, there's always a trickle of people, a trickle of people reaching out saying, man, I really enjoyed this and it really helped me push to the next part of my goal of doing this or that. And yeah. Yeah, I think
Good.
that because I really wanted to show that I'm a normal person, that I'm not a superhero, that it was just like it was really hard work and determination that made this possible. It was not that I was born with some super sailing power. Um, and I think that is what helps it resonate with people, to feel like they can do whatever they're chasing.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, it's obviously being released into paperback, I think on the 28th of May. Did you get a chance to rework it in any way?
I did get a chance to reread it, and I found, the changes I made were really subtle. I don't
Okay.
know that anyone who would reread it for a second time would even notice, but yeah, I did get a chance to read through it again and make some very small changes.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Were you ultimately happy when you reread it?
Yeah, I was. There were a few things that I was like, wow, I forgot that I included that. But um but in general, yeah, it was really, really fun to reread it. And it reminded me myself, because, you know, it was hard decision to get off the boat and decide to start a life on land and completely, shift my it was like shifting my identity, because you know, Captain Liz, I'm so wrapped up in that uh persona that I was, and I mean still am, but uh it reminded me of how crazy my path has been to get where I am today, and that I should be proud of myself.
Yeah. Good.
That was good.
Yeah, I mean, can you dive deeper into what was that kind of decision making process like, or was there a final straw that made you make the decision to stop living the lifestyle that you'd been living?
I think, just like anything, when you do it for long enough, there's a little bit of the shine that rubs off, or you just I was at a place where I was just needing a different challenge, kind of. And um I think with feeling like I'd really completed and succeeded at the big sailing and surfing goal and mission that I'd set out on, um part of me really wanted to kind of be a little bit more comfortable, and also uh try my hand at like environmental activism that had a more hands-on feeling to it, because I was really doing a lot of raising awareness in a lot of great ways through
Mhm.
social media and, sharing the experiences I was having. But I think I was ready to actually like get my hands dirty and, try to see what it's like to work on projects in a small community with a team. And so that's kind of like, that was kind of during the book writing process, I was becoming a part of this community and, um, observing the issues in the community that needed attention. And, um, once the book was published, uh, there was a group of people who were kind of really on a similar mission as me and wanted to do more to give back. And so it was really great to come together with those people. And I'm working um, really hard on a lot of projects for the community ever since. And so it's been a really cool change of challenge, and I I was ready for that.
Yeah. Do you remember um, when you first kind of identified your passion for environmentalism? Was there something that happened early in life, or?
Yeah, I'm sure you read that we took um a family sailing trip to Mexico when I was a kid. I think I was 8, 9, and it was kind of there that I remember seeing the big contrast of where we'd be out in these beautiful remote places in Baja and the Sea of Cortez that were just such incredibly stunning, pristine nature areas, and then we'd go into ports, and the contrast was so striking that where all the humans were, it smelled bad, there was trash. um I, would find sea life stuck in fishing line and things like that. It was very easy in my young mind to kind of like put this together, like, oh, that beautiful pristine area felt really good and right and in order, and this over here, does not feel right. And so I think having that experience with that kind of contrast at that young of an age kind of set me up for saying, I really love this and I want to protect this, and this I want to try to minimize and educate people about. And so yeah, I remember way back then, my 10th birthday or something, my mom gave me posters that said save the trees and save the seas, and I was mailing my chores money to Greenpeace in an envelope. And um, you know, I definitely felt that passion really young. Mm.
What what environmental causes are you currently working on, and would you like to call our attention to?
Yeah, so currently, so I've you probably read about Tropicat, and I had and the wonderful relationship that I had with her, and she passed away short just before the publishing of Swell in 2018. And due to that, I kind of got also into animal welfare. So one of the big projects that I've been working on in this community is making spay and neuter accessible to people of all economic levels. And so that dream has finally come to fruition the last couple years. And we're running a huge spay and neuter program this year, hoping to do 1,500 dogs and cats, which is also a benefit for the environment as well. We've got a lot of native birds and species that are affected by the overpopulation of dogs and cats on our island. And um, so that ties into that. And then we're also our big ocean conservation projects are zoning for yachts. We came up with a way to help sailors define where it's sandy on the bottom to be able to anchor sailors, motorboaters, any traveling yachts that come in to be able to identify where it's safe to not anchor in coral and cause damage to live coral. So that was a big,
I'd be surprised they don't have that technology on board already.
I know it's crazy. It's crazy, actually. I think sometimes that all the modern technology has made it easier for people in a way that can be sometimes not good because the basics, the
Yeah.
fundamentals sometimes get lost. And I know it's a learning curve, but yeah, it surprises me how often I see um, yachts throwing their anchor right on live coral that they can actually see just below the boat. It's pretty incredible. So yeah, that was a really great project, and we got it written into law in 2021. And then after that, shifted our focus to marine protected areas and working with the local fishermen to kind of understand their needs and what they think would be the best way to um, add fishing protections that will help the fisheries bounce back, because there's a lot of overfishing here and a lot of people who depend on fishing and subsistence living off of what they fish. So really, really important project, and has been really, really interesting and inspiring to work really closely with the fishermen and have them lead the way to protecting their own waters. Um, so yeah, that's been one of our most exciting projects. It's been really successful as well. That's what the meeting that we had to shift our talk to was yesterday.
Yeah, yeah, good. Um,
Yeah, those are the
well,
big ones. Mhm.
yeah, that's a lot. It's a full plate. Um,
Yeah.
regarding, we kind of have an ongoing conversation with almost everybody I interview just about surfing into midlife and later life and staying fit for it. I'm going to read an excerpt from the book um, to you. Might cut it out in editing, but I'll just read it to bring you up to speed.
Awesome.
Um, as a kid, I was often sick. During the voyage, I um, suffered through numerous fevers, rashes, bladder infections, sinus infections, sore throat, and other bouts of bedridden illness. If it was catchable, I would get it. Spending lots of time away from medical facilities, I've realized that I have to take a proactive approach to my health. No vitamin or immunity booster compares to simply changing the way I eat. Since I embraced a mainly organic, whole food, plant-based diet, my nagging injuries disappeared. My joints feel better, and the persistent acne on my face vanished. Colds and flus are less frequent. The stable flow of stored energy that I have throughout the day cannot be compared to the old ups and downs. Along with my personal health benefits, the animals and earth rejoice as well. That was written 10 years ago. What does your diet look like today?
So today it's really similar. Um I had so many incredible health changes from changing my lifestyle to be mainly plant-based, that and plus it just aligns so much with my personal values and for the planet and for you know, being kind to other beings. So I've added back a little bit of fish from time to time. Living in Tahiti, it's really, you can eat fish very sustainably still, and socially it's pretty hard to be completely vegan, completely plant-based. So I do eat fish from time to time. It's generally like fish that Tahui catches, or if we're out to dinner and there's really no other options, I'll have, something with fish in it. And but I feel good. My body seems to really love this diet, and I know diet is such a personal journey, and
Yeah.
everybody's body is different. And so I try not to, judge other people for their choices, but yeah, mostly just share what I've experienced and encourage people to try it if they do have health issues that may benefit from going with eating more plants and plant-based foods. So yeah, it's still very much a part of my everyday lifestyle to eat the way that I was 10 years ago.
Good. Yeah. And I want to read it, wanted to read it just for people to hear that a lot of those ailments went away by adjusting your food, which seems so obvious. But
Yeah,
again, living in a modern kind of Western civilization, it's not that obvious. And, you know, adding in things is kind of what people would try to do to mitigate against those ailments, whether it's medication or whatever. And so just hearing that there is a simple adjustment that can be made, I think is a good reminder.
totally. It's so powerful, and it's incredible how food can be wrapped up with so many emotional things as well. So sometimes like that seems like the hardest thing ever for people. Um, and I totally understand that. For me, like cheese was uh, it was my everything. But when my when my health just when I felt so much better, I there was no way that I could go back to something that my body, the fuel just didn't go with my with how my, optimal body wanted to function. And I think that that's given me, you know, in my mid 30s, I think I was feeling like I was, kind of maxing at my surf potential and kind of
Mm,
plateauing, and everything on the boat was getting harder, lifting and cranking and all the contorted positions you find yourself in on a boat. And then, with that diet and lifestyle change, it was like I had all of these new years ahead of me with a really functional, happy, healthy body, and that was just so exciting to me. So yeah, now, I need to do yoga and I have to maintain my body still, but I feel like I'm surfing better than I ever have, and I'm 44. So um for me, that's being able to continue doing the thing that I love so much. That's everything. So, yeah, once in a while I think about cheese, but really not that often.
well, the funny thing is, I remember things that I used to love and crave that now sound disgusting to me
Totally.
because you've made those changes and you feel better for it. And then it's just like, man, there's no
No,
craving anymore.
totally.
What,
Yeah.
I'm curious when you said you eat fish occasionally. When you do eat it, do you feel a difference in your body?
I think the biggest difference that I feel is that when I'm actually, I think it's more of like an emotional difference, because when I do make the choice to eat fish, I really think about the fish and I appreciate it. And I do think that, you know, humans in in times before modern times, eating meat was often in most places a luxury, and it was something that was done for celebrations. And I've read that the Polynesian diet was 80% plant-based, before modern food was imported. And so there's this kind of like deep gratitude and celebration if I am gonna choose to eat meat. I don't think that I feel that big of a difference, but I definitely like appreciate it and think about it in a way that makes me feel like, um I think that if we do choose to eat other beings, like I would, if someone was going to eat me, I would hope that they would um take that moment to think about it a little bit before and appreciate me.
Yeah, totally. Be grateful for the meal no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Uh,
I find that I don't crave meat or fish at all. It's just generally like more out of a convenience or need, socially because there's no other options. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Good. What is your policy on alcohol, or do you drink alcohol?
I'm pretty moderate with drinking alcohol. From time to time, I like to go have a drink with my friends in the right moments. I love music, and if there's going to be live music or an occasion like that, which is pretty rare where I am, yeah, I'll have a drink here and there, but generally pretty moderate about drinking. Mm.
You mentioned yoga. Is there anything else, any other physical exercise that you do regularly?
If there's no surf, I try to I love free diving and
Mm.
swimming, just getting in the water. Um I'm not a super disciplined, like I don't go running. I think I'm kind of I think I'm kind of lazy and I love exercise that's fun, so surfing is always the thing that gets me most excited. But if there hasn't been waves for a while or a couple days or whatever, I love to free dive. I love to take long walks with my dogs and just do something for my body every day.
Yeah, good.
Mm.
Um, when you're living in an environment like you're living in, I think it'd be uh, easy. It'd be very appealing to spend a lot of time being physical and being outside, you know?
Yes, it does. Can be hot, but
Yeah,
um
yeah,
yeah, getting in the water always cures that.
totally. Um, do you have any other big trips planned?
I'm just starting to kind of get the itch to do another big sailing trip, or get back on Swell for a couple months a year and go exploring new places. I think I kind of had to focus on um paying down my loan for the land and do a little bit of adulting here the last several years, and but yeah, I'm starting to get the itch to do some more exploring. There's still so much just even of the Pacific that I haven't seen, and so but yeah, the reality is harder than just talking about it, because Swell now, there's a lot of big elements that definitely need like thorough checking or replacement, and so it's not going to be cheap to get Swell ready for another big adventure. The good thing is I have learned how to do things much more simply. Over the years on Swell, I've just eliminated so many things that at the beginning seemed like super necessary and important. And then over the years, it was just like simplify, make everything easier, less things to fix, less things to break, keep it basic. So, but even that, the boats they're a lot of work. And
Totally.
yeah.
Um, would you document the journey?
I don't know. I don't know. I think I would try to do some sort of documentation of it. I'm not super skilled with cameras, video, and I'm not I'm not one of those people who loves to like do selfie videos and talk about things in the moment. I wish was more confident like that and enjoyed that a little bit more. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't thought about it enough yet to really know
Well,
what
I
form that
mean,
would take.
I'm just like you could all those repairs that need to happen on that boat. This could become a business proposition. You know what I mean? Like there's enough people with enough interest in you at this point to where you could just map out a business plan for what that next journey would look like. And there's people that would support it. But
Yeah.
I would also understand not wanting to make it a business. You know what I mean? Like, and just it really strips away some of the original intent once it becomes a business.
It totally does. You're so right. And I struggled with that throughout my, the time I was sailing, because, throughout the journey became more and more possible to, the ways to document yourself and share those things became uh, easier and possible to do on my own. But, I come from that era of like, where you'd have to like call from a payphone in the middle of Mexico. And, you got to really live those experiences so in the moment. And, I see people now sailing around and holding the camera and having to always be thinking about that. I feel like I feel lucky to have lived my experience the way that I did. And there's a there's a pureness about it, or it was a precious, precious thing to be able to have that time and live so in the moment. And, the only documenting I was really doing at those times were through photos and blogging. And um yeah, I'm sure I could do better at selling myself, or, find a way to fund it through that type of documentation. I'm not sure how good at it I'd be, but
Well, look, I think you could do it on your own terms. I mean, you already said you don't know what form it would take. I think it could be whatever form you decide that it is, and that you would have an audience that would accept it on your terms. So it doesn't have
yeah,
to be a selfie mode iPhone thing. It could be, it could be a second book is what it could be.
that's a cool way to think of it. Yeah. Yes, and definitely, if there would definitely be documentation, written documentation for sure. So,
It's interesting. I mean, there's a trend now of people doing exactly what you did. I mean, the Torn Martin film came out last year, and that has hit over 1 million views on YouTube in the last couple of weeks. Obviously, John Florence is making a lifestyle and a brand out of it.
yes.
And I know I have listeners too who have reached out, who are currently on boats with their significant other, kind of documenting it all via social media. So
Mhm.
it's kind of crazy to see how popular it's become.
Yeah, it's crazy to me too. I um sometimes the anchorages here are really full, and I'm like, did I do this? This is partly my fault. Um, but no, I think it's a wonderful thing because, you know, no matter whether you're doing it like John or you're doing it on a shoestring, being out on the ocean and seeing the world like that, there's no way that you don't care more about the planet, that you don't learn about yourself, that you don't, there's just so much growth to be had, and in so many positive ways, that I think it's a really wonderful thing.
It feels like so many of those lessons can't be learned any other way.
There are similar land oriented versions, I think. Living out of a car and doing a long trip, you encounter a lot of similar things in terms of people and mechanical issues and things like that. But yeah, the ocean kind of doing it on the ocean kind of adds that next level um of just the ocean as an element that you can't control, and being at the mercy of another mother nature.
Completely enveloped in it.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so considering that there are people listening who are probably inspired by your story, any words of advice? I mean, I don't think that there's probably no amount of preparation you could do before you set off on a trip like that to really be prepared for it. But are there any just basics that you would recommend, or things that you wish that you had known?
Yeah, I think I wish that I had known that um I didn't need so much stuff. I didn't need so many gadgets and things that at the time, I think it was because I was scared and I was so wanting to succeed that I thought having all of these different systems on the boat and things were going to make it more possible. And in some ways, yes, they did, but I think um there's a point where you get to in your preparation where you just got to say, like, I've done enough, I've got enough, and I'm going to figure out the rest along the way. It's not like you're never going to have access to those things again, or, being able to do other upgrades at some point. You just have to say, uh, the rest I'm going to learn and figure out along the way. I think I think it's more about your attitude and having an open mind about uh how the trip unfolds, kind of getting rid of those expectations that you're going to be in the blissful moments all the time, and
Mm.
understanding that, like, a big part of the time it's going to suck. Like, you're going to have to fix all these things you don't know how to fix, and you're going to be stuck in the elements that you don't want to be in. The wind's going to always be blowing the wrong direction, and you have to be able to find humor in that. You have to be able to enjoy the adventure of it, or else it's not gonna you're not gonna have that much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think the vast majority of it would be the working element. I mean, I can't even imagine you get much time to actually relax.
You really don't.
Yeah.
You really don't.
Um, I'm curious, has anybody optioned the movie rights to the book, or have there been talks about a movie at all?
Yes, I had a really awesome team option it a couple years ago. We worked on a TV series type um, production for Swell, but it didn't quite fall into the right hands in terms of getting it to the screen. Um, so yeah, I'm not pushing that. If it happens, it'll be really cool. But I do want it to be with the right people and feel right, and um, have it stay enough true to my story that it still seems like my story,
Yeah.
which TV, you kind of never know how it gets turned and manipulated to make it sellable, I guess.
That is such a risk. I mean, I would venture a guess that the vast majority of people are unhappy with the way that it turns out. There's just so many decisions that get made by so many people along the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's risky.
Even through that process, I kind of had to, like, shed a lot of my ego about it. It really became a different story. There was some semblance of my story in it, but it was not, you know, quite the same as picking up the book and reading it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious. It'd be there's got to be some sort of gratitude that you would feel no matter what. Like whatever of course you want to see the real story that's true to you. That's what you want to see play out. But whatever version does get played out, I would think would feel some you'd feel some sort of, I don't know, gratitude or pride about. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And what I came back to over and over during the process was, you know, what really matters to me is that the important messages come through,
Okay.
and how, it's bigger than being about me and my story. It's
Yeah, yeah.
really, when you reach an audience through TV, it's such a bigger, broader audience than through books. And so the potential for transmitting some of these really important messages about our environmental crisis, and uh our connection as humans to that, and just all the positive things that I learned throughout and tried to share in the book. If those can come through, um the rest is pretty insignificant.
Good. Yeah, that's smart. Um, would you dare say who you would like to see cast as Captain Liz Clark?
Gosh, I don't even know any movie star names.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I
You
don't
could
know.
leave that to somebody else and leave that to casting.
Yes, someone will be a much bigger expert than I would.
Um, whose surfboards are you riding nowadays?
Mostly riding Fletcher Chenard surfboards, Patagonia's surfboards. Every now and then I get a few other boards. I have some Channel Islands boards in my quiver. Um I have a Mayhem that someone gave me recently and having fun on that. A couple Firewires in the lineup too. So yeah, I'm lucky to have uh a broad amount of surfboards that find me and get passed on through friends and things like that. So, but yeah, I love my FCD boards, and there's a couple boards that are just so great for so many conditions that they're always in my close lineup of what's getting ridden all the time.
Yeah, so what are you riding currently? I mean, I it seems like in the book you're riding pointy thrusters mainly. What style of board are you riding now?
I still have my days on my pointy thrusters. The waves in this part of the world just tend to require that from time to time, and or a lot of the time. But yeah, I love, there's a FCD board that I feel like is one of my most versatile boards. It's called the F Rocket. It's full in the nose, and it's a quad setup, but it's got a nice rounded pin tail that makes it really good even in the pocket, you know. But I can ride it in bigger waves, kind of as a step up board. I can ride it like on waves that are mushier, and just because it has more foam. Um, I love that board. Um, and I'm riding like a single fin, 8 foot single fin sometimes when the waves are small. I'm super enjoy just gliding in a different way and uh changing it up from my short boards. I really have fun um doing that, because a lot of times surfing is so serious here, not in terms of like um how people act to one another, but just in terms of like the seriousness of the waves. It's like heavy and scary.
Yeah.
And when you have those days that are nice, fun, and playful, and it's definitely a nice change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Awesome. Final question is just how are your parents doing?
Oh, thanks for asking. Um, They're doing great. They're both living on the Big Island.
Oh,
My dad,
fun.
yeah, a couple years ago, well, it was during COVID actually. My mom was living over there, and he was kind of still nomadic with his travel for work, and but during COVID, you know, he decided to hang and spend some time out there with her for a longer period of time, and stumbled upon this like really run down, I mean, vines growing over the house, like very fixer upper type of place. And it's a land lease. It's an agricultural land lease on the Big Island. And he's now a full-fledged macadamia nut and coffee farmer. And he's just loves it and is on the board of all these local, there's like a breadfruit co-op and macadamia nut advisory board. And so he's using his law skills to help some of these small, um, farmer organizations to get fair pay for what for their crops and things like that. And so he's he's so happy. He's loving it. Yeah,
How fun is that? I mean,
it's
you never
really,
know. You never know what life is going to present. There's so many chapters.
yeah. He's gonna be 75 in July, and he quit drinking in, I think it was 2017. So he's just had this whole new lease on life. Also, went mostly plant-based. And so it's incredible what he does over there on the farm. It's definitely another case to make you believe in, diet changing, having an effect on your body. And my mom's doing great too. She loves it over there. She paddles on a outrigger team a couple times a week, and um, just has lots of nice friends. And so my sister lives there too. So now almost everyone's over there, and no one's in California anymore. But yeah, it's a great place to go visit as well. So I'm
Totally.
lucky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, they've got to be proud of you and proud of the book. That's quite the relic to have in your family.
Thank you. Yes, I think they are.
Right on. Well, congratulations again. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this and navigating the internet issues with me. And yeah,
Yeah. So sorry about that. Thank you. This was really enjoyable chatting with
good.
you. So
Well, thank you.
thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Surf Splendor.